The opinions shared on this show reflect those of the individual speaker and not of any 12-Step Fellowship as a whole. And though we discuss 12-Step recovery and the impact it had in our lives, we do not promote or endorse any 12-Step Anonymous program. It's time for the Share Recovery Podcast, where we bring you amazing life-changing success stories from addicts and alcoholics all over the world who share their inspiring journey in recovery. And now, here's your host, O.
On today's episode of the Share Podcast, we listen to Leigh Ann tell us her story. Leigh Ann, now celebrating 2 years clean, takes us through 12 years of alcohol and drug abuse. She was your typical girl next door until a vicious rumor at age 15 derails her, and Leigh Ann starts smoking pot, drinking alcohol, as well as consuming ecstasy and cocaine daily. During those 12 years, Leigh Ann goes in and out of rehab 9 times, ends up living in her car, and attempts suicide, until one day a spiritual awakening and recovery saves her life. Her journey is nothing short of a miracle. Join us now. Welcome to the show, Leigh Ann.
Hey, O, thanks for having me.
It's truly an honor to have you.
Hold on just a second. Do what? Just talk me. Oh, you can talk now. I'm not recording yet. Sorry, my boyfriend's here and he was like whispering and I couldn't understand what he was saying. He's going to a meeting while I do this.
Oh, okay.
Because I told him he couldn't talk. So he's like, I'm going to go to a meeting.
Dude, what time is it over there?
9:30. We have 10 o'clock meetings because we're
Get
awesome.
out. Oh, man, that's awesome.
Yeah, we have midnights too. Not at our group, but other places.
I forgot about that. I used to have midnight meetings when I lived in L.A.
Yeah, you've been gone a while, huh?
I've been gone I forgot that there's meetings at 6 a.m., 7 a.m., 8 a.m.,
Yeah.
9 a.m., 10 a.m. Oh, you guys are so blessed.
I know. It's really cool.
All right, so Leigh Ann, let's dive right in. Tell us about your life today, your hobbies, what you do for a living. Take us into your normal daily routine, including recovery.
Well, I work for a flooring company, so I'm there most of my day. I work anywhere from 8 to 10 hours a day. And I'm also an exercise fanatic, so I'm either running or at the gym, usually after work, and then I try to hit 3 to 4 meetings a week. I recently had a part-time job, and last night was actually my last night there, because it was just becoming too much. I tend to have an addictive personality, so I was kind of becoming addicted to work, but now I'm going to focus more on my recovery.
Now, you like to exercise a lot. What kind of exercises do you do?
I run. Running is my favorite. I'll tell you that in my story, but I experienced my spiritual awakening when I was running, and but I live in Texas, so it gets really hot in the summer, so I took up a new hobby, which was lifting weights. Never thought I would do that, but I did that over the summer. I enjoy both. Those are pretty much the two things I do.
And how old were you the first time you drank or used drugs? And more importantly, how did it make you feel?
I was 15 years old. I remember feeling like I never fit in and like something was wrong with me. And so the first time I drank, I felt like I was just the shit and I could do anything in the world and I was just beautiful and awesome and everybody loved me. And then that's when I tried weed for the first time, and then it was even better. And I remember just laying on the floor, staring at the ceiling, spinning, and thinking that this is what I was missing my entire life, and this is the answer to all of my problems.
I think we all have a very similar story. All right, so now it's time for me to turn the show over to you, Leigh Ann. It's time for you to tell your story, your battle against drugs and alcohol, the wreckage it caused in your life, when you hit rock bottom, and finally your journey into recovery up until today. So, Leigh Ann, take it away.
All righty. Well, I was raised by my father. My parents divorced when I was 2. And I remember growing up, I got questioned a lot as a kid why my dad raised me when I'm a girl. And I really never knew the answer. I just knew that my parents fought a lot and they wouldn't really talk about it. I just knew that my dad had me, and it was kind of like a weird unspoken thing that went around in my family. So anyways, and I'm an only child. The first time I remember feeling kind of weird and like something was wrong with me, I was about 5. And I remember I was going into kindergarten and I freaked out. It was my first day. Started crying, hiding behind my dad's legs. I just did not want to go. most kids get over that, and I don't recall really ever getting over that fear of being around other people. I always had the social phobia and just felt like I didn't fit in and I was different from everybody else. And it didn't help that my father would tell me, he sent me to therapy when I was 5 and told me something was wrong with me. So that kind of played a part in it as well. I'm 5 years old, my dad's sending me to therapy, telling me something's wrong. So then in my head, I'm thinking something's wrong. And maybe there was something wrong because here I am today. But anyway, so that fear of people never went away. Throughout my childhood growing up, my parents would always talk bad about each other. My mom's, she's now on her 4th husband. So she married her 2nd husband when I was 7 and moved to Houston. Then that didn't work out, came back, and then she married her 3rd husband. So I always saw her going from man to man. And my dad only remarried once. He wasn't clinging to other women, but he was obsessed with work. My mom moved to Houston when I was little, and my dad was poor, and he was trying to do anything he could do to support me. So he worked his full-time job. He started his own business, and he worked from home. So when he was home, he would work probably 12 hours a day straight, nonstop in his office, and then he would work poker parties at night. So I would go to my grandparents' house. So I rarely saw him, even though he was home all the time, because he was glued to the computer, and then at night he was gone, and I'd stay with my grandparents. And that went on. I mean, he's still to this day as a workaholic. That hasn't changed. So
I know your dad. I know your dad. It sounds so familiar.
He has not changed. So Here we are 20 years later, and he's still the same way. So,
wow.
Anyways, I just remember never feeling, I mean, he always told me he loved me and everything, but I never got the attention. I craved attention, and I couldn't get it because he was too worried about making money and, working. And then my mother, I love her to death, but she's a little bit emotionally unstable, and so I didn't really get that love and affection from her. So that added on to me not feeling like I fit in because I didn't really know how to deal with people. I didn't have parents who really taught me. They did the best they could, and I know that today. But I know, being an only child and not having parents around, I was stuck in my head a lot, and that's a dangerous place for me to be. I became a tomboy, and I was really dorky, really good at the clarinet. And I got really into band in middle school and was first chair in the state of Texas for clarinet, which means I was the best. There was a competition, and I was the best one.
I'm totally trying to picture this Leigh Ann.
I know.
I'm trying to picture this geeky clarinet playing
horrible
sweetheart,
Hey, I'm still a sweetheart.
No, you're still a sweetheart.
But so I was made fun of a lot because I was so awkward and I didn't know how to talk to other people. And by this time I'm in 8th grade. And I wanted so desperately to fit in with the popular people. By this age, that's all I thought that mattered in life. I didn't know how to fill a void with God, even though my dad kind of forced Christianity down my throat. I was more in fear that I was going to go to hell because that's what I was taught as a little kid. I wasn't really taught how to have a relationship. So I was constantly trying to fill it with other people's love. And I think that had a huge role in my parents not really being there emotionally for me as well. So in 8th grade, this is an important part of my story because it kind of explains how early on I started my behavior and my thinking. There was a rumor spread about me in 8th grade that I was a lesbian. And I remember I got so upset over what other people thought of me that I physically got ill for 2 weeks. And I missed 2 weeks of school. This happened maybe 3 months before the end of the school year. And I was supposed to go on, that was 8th grade, so I was supposed to become a freshman and go to high school in this public school with all these people I'd always gone to school with. And I begged my dad not to make me go to that school, even though by the time freshman year, it was like 6 months later, after that rumor. I was still so worried about what people thought. And I thought that just because there was a rumor spread that people were going to think that and that meant something was wrong with me, it was just crazy how I let that fear run my life and that worry of what other people thought. So I went to the private school, and I was born and raised in Garland, Texas, by the way. I forgot to mention that. So I went to this private school, and it didn't change. I mean, there was nobody knew about my rumor, but my thinking of what other people thought of me was still the same. I was still in fear. I still didn't know how to fit in. And I remember sophomore year, there was a girl that came to my school who had gone to my middle school, and she was popular and she was a cheerleader, and she was terrified because she was new at my school and didn't know anybody, but when she saw me, she recognized me. So she befriended me because she didn't know anybody else. So I thought, oh my God, someone popular likes me. I mean, that's all I ever cared about. I don't know where I got this idea that mattered in life, but I was stuck on it. So we actually became best friends. We were inseparable. I went to my first party with her. I was a really good kid, went to church all the time, never cussed, never did any drugs or alcohol, never thought about it. My dad's in recovery, and I was raised going to meetings with him. So he always told me I could probably have the gene, but, when you're a kid, you don't really believe that. You don't really understand it. So, but, I didn't think I would ever try them because I wanted to be such a good kid, and I didn't want to go to hell either. That was a big deal.
Of course.
So I had to, be perfect, because I still try to be perfect to this day. That hasn't really changed. I still struggle with that. But anyways, I went to this party with her, and there was alcohol there. And I just remember being terrified because I was always taught that was wrong. And so I wouldn't drink, and they all started making fun of me. Well, these are all the popular kids, because these weren't kids from my private school. These were actually kids from the public school that I was afraid to go to, and then that girl that ended up at my private school. So all I ever wanted was to be accepted and loved by everybody, right? So what do? I drink, not because I want to, but because I want everybody else to like me. I don't want to be made fun of. And, man, I drank a Boone's Farm Fuzzy Navel, and I don't know if you've ever had one of those.
What is that?
It's a huge bottle of wine. It's like a really cheap drink. Okay, it was probably like $3 or something. I don't even remember. But you never had that.
Is it the one with the screw top?
Yes.
Oh, just.
It tastes like peach.
Oh, yeah. Okay, absolutely.
It's like it's like a Smirnoff kind of. But
it's like a wine cooler.
Yes, a wine cooler. Thank you. I can't see. It's been so long. I can't even remember what you call them.
Right.
Anyways, yes, it's like a wine cooler, but it's a big bottle, especially for a 15-year-old who weighs 100 pounds and has never drank.
Wow.
So I drank the whole thing that night, and I probably drank it, I don't know, within maybe 20 minutes. I think I downed it. Once I had that first sip, I'm not joking you. I mean, I had never experienced it before, but it's like, oh, this kind of burns and tingles a little. I like this. And I just kept drinking it. And the more I drank, the more powerful I felt, the more beautiful I felt, the less awkward I felt. I felt like I could do anything and everybody loved me and I was funny and I was just the coolest kid on the face of the earth. And so I immediately fell in love because it filled that void that I had been searching for so long. And then, like I stated earlier, they had weed and I tried that because once I was drunk, I didn't care. And that just added on, man, mixing the weed and the alcohol. Oh, man, this is the perfect thing. This is what I've been missing my whole life. Why has no one shown me this before? Why did my dad tell me not to do it? I didn't start out slowly. I've heard a lot of people in my home group tell their story, and they'll share about how they went on for 30-plus years without having any problems in their life, and they only, drank here and there for a long time. I didn't have that experience. I'm kind of crazy. I'm a really hardcore. I have an addictive personality. So when I like something, I'm all in. And I remember getting drunk and high every single weekend after that. And it wasn't but maybe a month or two later that I started doing it during the week, like when I had school. I was sneaking out at night. And within 3 months, I was doing cocaine and ecstasy. And,
wow.
yeah.
Wow.
So, and I mean, this became an everyday thing. I mean, it didn't start out like, oh, just party here and there. No, I had to get high and drunk every single day.
Wow, 0 to 60 in 2.3 seconds. You went from clarinet player to drinking every day and smoking weed?
Clarinet Christian girl who's at church 5 nights a week to smoking weed, doing cocaine, ecstasy, and drinking every night. Yeah. I don't know. I've always been this way when I get really obsessed with stuff. So.
That's impressive.
Yeah. So my dad, it didn't take him long to figure out what was going on with me. So especially since he's in recovery. Most people who are in recovery can see the warning signs of somebody who's using or drinking. My whole personality had changed. I wasn't, I was lying. I was sneaking out. I was cussing. I was talking back. I'd always talked back, really. I've never been, I was kind of a little shit growing up, but it got a lot worse and my grades started failing, and so I remember one night I was at my friend's house and I took ecstasy. And she did not do drugs. She drank every now and then, but she didn't do drugs. And she found out that I was on ecstasy. And she told me if I didn't leave, it was her and her boyfriend. And they both told me if I didn't leave that they were going to tell my parents. So I needed to go home. So I drove home, and this was like 45 minutes from where I lived. They lived really far from me. My dad had given me an Infinity, and I drove home in that Infinity on ecstasy. And my dad told me the next day he was going to send me to rehab. They had called him and told him I was using drugs. So I woke up and my car was gone and I was told I had to go to rehab. Well, I didn't want to go to rehab. I'm 16 at this time. I didn't want to go. I wanted nothing to do with it. I just wanted to keep getting fucked up and nobody get in my way because this was the answer to all my problems and fuck all of you for trying to tell me that I needed to do something different. And so I ran away and I'm not very good. I like to talk a lot. And sometimes I talk too much, so of course I told everybody where I went, and I got caught within 24 hours by the police, so that didn't work out so well for me. And when you're 16, I don't know how it is in every other state, but I know in the state of Texas, they can hold you for 24 hours in juvenile for running away. So my dad made me sit that entire 24 hours in juvenile, and it was the worst 24 hours. Yeah, he wanted me to learn a lesson. So, and I was really hungover and coming off of drugs. I felt like shit, and I remember that they wanted me to mop with a real mop. Now, I didn't mention this prior to this, but my dad was poor when I was really young, and then he worked so hard, he started making a lot of money. And we had maids. So I had never, by the time I was a teenager, we had maids, and I didn't even have chores. I'm an only child. I was a spoiled shit. And I get to juvenile, and they want me to mop. I didn't even know what to do with it. Like, I looked at them and said, I have no idea how to use this thing. I didn't even know how to hold it. And, yeah.
It's this privileged child.
Yeah. This will help you understand why I'm such a little shit. So, anyways, I remember learning how to mop in juvenile and with the worst hangover and coming off of drugs. And I'm just like, oh my God, this is horrible. And then we had to go play football, and all the girls were really tough, and they were in there for, like, robbing people and, you know, being in gangs and stuff, and all I did was run away. So I was terrified, and they threw a football at my head, so that was fun. They didn't like me very much in there. I would not have made it. So anyways, my dad picked me up 24 hours later and took me to my first rehab, which was in oh, God, I think it's near Fredericksburg, Texas. It's in southern Texas. It's like 6 hours from where I live. And I stayed there for 6 weeks.
What was that one called?
Starlight.
Okay.
I hope you don't make me name all my rehabs because I don't know that I can do that. But I can tell you how many times I've been. Anyway.
How many times?
I've been 9 times. Yeah.
Oh, 9 times?
Yes, I'm 29 and I've been 9 times.
Okay, so we know where this is going, folks.
Yeah. I'll spare you with most of them. I'm just trying to build up to, the worst part.
Oh, no. You take your time. This is great stuff.
Yeah. So I go to my first rehab. I'm there for 6 weeks, and I loved it. I met friends who were my age because it was for juveniles who were just like me, who struggled with the same thoughts that I did. And, I didn't really grasp or understand what recovery was then. I didn't really know that I had a problem. I knew that something wasn't right about me. I think mainly I could understand that because my dad had raised me in NA. And so I kind of had an understanding of the disease already. And I knew it wasn't normal to go get fucked up every single day and skip school. And I knew that what I was doing wasn't normal, but I still didn't understand that I was powerless and my life was unmanageable. I thought that I was just young and I could get my shit together and somehow control it and still get fucked up and have fun, but not have all these problems happening in my life with getting in trouble with my parents and going from a straight A student to failing every class. And by the way, I quit playing the clarinet during all this time.
Oh,
yeah,
shocker.
Because that wasn't cool. I can't be getting fucked up and be popular and play the clarinet. Anyways, I came back from there, and I think I stayed clean and sober for about 6 months total. And honestly, I don't know how I did it. I know I went to meetings, but like I said, I didn't really understand it yet. I think it was just more, I was in fear of my dad. My dad is really strict, and I didn't want to get grounded, and I didn't want to get in trouble. And, I kind of enjoyed not getting grounded and not failing and being able to go to class and make good grades. I like to do well at anything I do in my life. So I'm a perfectionist. I struggle with it. And so I remember coming back from rehab and doing well in school again. And I thought, okay, this feels good to do well in school, after failing for a while. But I wasn't ready. I thought, okay, I've stopped for 6 months. I can go out and party. And I honestly can't tell you what happened when I relapsed. I just remember it was about 6 months, and then I started hanging out with my old friends, and I went back out. And I used and drank for 10 years, from the time I was 15 to the time I was 25. And I'm 29 now, and from 25 to 29, I had a few relapses, which I'll discuss. But basically what I'm trying to tell you is that from the age of 16 to the age of 25 is pretty much a blur. So I will share what I can, but I can't give too much detail because I really don't remember a lot. So I went back out. And by the way, this is important. So when I came back from rehab, I went to a Southern Baptist private school. Well, they wouldn't take me back. They said that they didn't want a drug addict in their school. Wow. So I was already in fear of God. And of course, if I'm using drugs and I'm drinking, I have no connection, right? I'm trying to fill a void with something other than God because I don't know how to fill that void with God. Well, and then I'm told that. So I feel like, well, God's going to hate me and send me to hell anyway. So I really wanted nothing to do with them. I was pissed off. I hated Christians at this point because I thought all Christians want me to burn in hell. And I was terrified because I didn't want to get judged by people. So, yeah, they wouldn't let me back in. And then even I went to a different church. It was also Baptist, but it was not the same school that I went to. And they wouldn't let me in their school either. So I ended up going to a private school that was for kids who had been through rehab. So it was only 10 of us, and it was self-paced. It was pretty cool. I was doing really well, and like everybody there was my age, and we'd all been through the same thing, really young and gone to rehab and just trying to get caught up because we'd fucked up our lives at the age of 16 to 18. And while I was going there is when I relapsed. And like I said, I don't really remember what happened, but I do know that this is when I met my first, I've always been kind of gone from man to man, but this was my first long relationship, you might say. We were together for 3 years, and I thought I was in love, but I'm only 17 at this time. But yes, he's the one when I'm 17, of course. I'm married to this man. And we're getting fucked up all the time, and he goes to a public school, and he's left-handed pitcher for this school, and he's a total popular guy. I drove a cool car, and so that's all that mattered to me, right? Because I just had to be cool and popular and loved.
Of course.
Yeah, and he was really hot, and all the girls wanted him, so that made me even cooler that I dated this hot guy. Well, I got pregnant, so that didn't work out so well, getting high and pregnant in a school for kids who've been through rehab. And anyways, I decided to drop out of school because I was pregnant and I wanted to still get high. So I ended up moving in with this boyfriend of mine because my dad and mom were like, there's no way, that we're going to let you stay with us, the life you're living. Well, his dad was an alcoholic and his mom was a drug addict. And so we pretty much got away with whatever we wanted. We'd stay out all night. I remember at this point, like I said, I'm pregnant and I'm not stopping using. So I'm doing every drug I've mentioned so far, drinking every day. And plus I'm taking pills on top of this. By this time I was addicted to Xanax. And
wow.
I couldn't stop. Like I didn't understand why I was pregnant and I couldn't stop using. Even though I'd been to rehab and I'd been raised in NA, it wasn't clicking. I knew that something was wrong with me, but I just didn't understand what I needed to do, or, I don't know if that makes any sense. So I was just kind of lost. I was just like, what the fuck? But I couldn't stop. It was just this uncontrollable desire and urge. And it went on the entire pregnancy. I never stopped the entire pregnancy. In fact, my drug of choice ended up being meth. And the first time I tried it, I was pregnant. So
were you living with your boyfriend at the time?
Yes. And he would feed me drugs because I was a bitch if I didn't get them. I would throw fits and just treat him like shit. And that doesn't make it right for him to do that, but I had a part, is my point. I would treat everybody. I mean, don't you dare tell me I can't get fucked up because I'm going to treat you like shit and make you wish you never lived. So he would just pretty much just be like, here, get fucked up. Anyways, that story, long story short of that, I was going to give my child up for adoption. because obviously I'm not going to be a fit mother, and I still want to get fucked up. I mean, that's completely selfish. There was no connection with me and my child because I'm fucked up all the time, so I can't even build that bond that you build within that 9 months you're pregnant. And I just wanted to keep getting fucked up, and a child would get in the way. Well, I had my son a month early, and so I remember laying in bed one night and waking up, and my water broke. So I rushed to the hospital, and I was going through an adoption agency, and I didn't have a family picked out yet, so I had him, and I didn't have anybody picked out, so I took care of him for 2 days in the hospital. And when I did that, and plus I'm not like snorting cocaine and smoking meth and taking pills in the hospital, so I was able to sober up for a minute and actually see my son in my arms and feed him and take care of him. And I cannot describe to you that love that I felt. Once that happened, I was like, no, I'm not giving him up for adoption. I'm keeping him. And I mean, those were never my plans, and it just completely changed. And I know you have a daughter, so you know what that's like, that bond.
I know exactly what you're going through at that moment. Yeah.
The doctor, it was very obvious I was on drugs, considering how much I used and everything. It's not like I could hide it from anybody. So she knew, and she drug tested me when I had the baby, and I came out positive. So she drug tested my son as well, and he came out clean, thank God. I don't know how.
You're kidding.
No, it was God. God.
That absolute higher power.
Yeah.
Yes.
So, I just got chills saying that.
That is a miracle.
It is so.
I had goosebumps listening to you tell this story right now, and I'm so relieved right now. You have no idea.
Yeah, I don't know how it happened, but it did. So.
Oh my God. Whew,
my
God.
Yeah. But since she found him in my system, she told me if I tried to keep him that the state would take him away and he'd be in foster care. And I knew she was right. I didn't stand a chance fighting this. And I knew deep down that I could not provide a life for him. It was just pure selfish love. I wanted to keep him because he's mine. But what kind of mother would I be if I can't even not get high when I'm pregnant? So I went through with the adoption. He went to this lady. She's like a foster mom, but it's not foster care because this was an adoption agency, so she worked for them. So I got to visit him while he was there, and then I think it was within maybe a month to 6 weeks, I picked out a family, and I interviewed families and everything. And so I found a family, and we had a whole adoption ceremony, and it was beautiful. And it was supposed to be an open adoption, but I couldn't stay clean, and my boyfriend, he's a drug addict as well, and he wasn't clean, and then his father is an alcoholic. His mother's a drug addict. I mean, they probably got scared of us is where I'm going with it, because they quit returning all of our calls. And not only would they not return my calls or his calls, but they wouldn't return my dad's calls or his mother's calls. They probably were like, you know what, I know it was open adoption, but we don't want anything to do with you. You're a fucked up family. So that was when he was 6 months old, and he will be 11 in February. So I have not seen him or heard anything about him since then.
That's very, very heavy, Leigh Ann.
Yeah.
Very, very heavy.
And I know it's hard for me to really show emotion when I talk about it in front of other people. I remember my first year of real sobriety and being clean that I cried a lot over that because I had numbed it for so long. And then there's still times from here to there where I'll cry about it, but I don't know what it is. Maybe I need to work through that with a therapist. I don't like to show emotion about it. I kind of try to block it still. It's really painful. But I always share it in my story because it's powerful. It shows you that I was a hardcore addict. I could not stop for anything. And I just like people to know, where I came from. So I'm getting messed up, and my boyfriend left me by this time, the guy I was with for 3 years. He had cheated on me. And my dad would not let me live with him unless I was clean. And just so you know, I was mainly on meth by this point. I'm 19 at this time. And meth became my drug of choice. It became the only thing I cared about. Not saying I never drank or did pills or smoked weed, but meth was the thing that I lived for. It made me feel like no other drug had ever made me feel. It was more powerful than anything else. I just can't explain it. So this is the story of how I went to rehab so many times. My dad wouldn't let me live with him unless I was clean. So what I would do, because I couldn't hold a job ever, I was too fucked up. So I would find a drug dealer, make him my boyfriend, and when he'd get tired of me, I'd go to rehab because my dad would make me go to rehab before I could live with him again. Well, I never really wanted to stay clean, right? I just wanted somewhere to live. I would go to rehab so I could go back home with my dad, and I would only last 2 weeks, month tops, because I didn't want it. And I'd be back out finding another drug dealer boyfriend. This went on for years. So this is how I went to rehab so many times. By the time I was 23, I had met my second really long-term relationship. We were together for 4 years, but we started seeing each other when I was 23. He was actually a big-time drug dealer, and this is when my life, I mean, it's already pretty bad, but it just got worse. In that course of I guess I was younger than 23 because we were together 4 years and we broke up. Anyways, it doesn't matter how old I was. I'm getting confused. See, it's all a big blur. Anyways,
no, it's okay. But first of all, Leigh Ann, I'm really blown away with your story. It's heavy, it's dramatic, it's amazing, and thank you for sharing this with us because there's people out there that need to hear this story. I know where it's going because I've known you for so long.
Yeah.
So I know that there's a happy ending, but right now in the middle of it, it's just like you're right in the middle of a movie, and all the drama and chaos is going on. So take your time. You're doing awesome, and thank you for this great story. Keep going.
Okay, thank you. Anyways, I met him in my early 20s. Age doesn't matter, and we would sleep on. There were these people that would rent out different motel rooms, and we would pretty much sleep on their floors if we would sleep. They would be roach-infested floors. These people, there were guns all around all the time. This is when I started hanging out with the scum of the earth. It just got really ugly, and that's where my drug of choice took me. It took me to levels I never thought I'd go. So within that 4 years, he and I were on and off. I remember towards the end of our relationship, I'll spare you all the gory details, but it just got really bad. I got down to 95 pounds. I was in kids' clothes.
Wow.
I was not eating. I stayed up for 28 days one time because I just couldn't sleep.
28 days?
Yes. Maybe I napped in between then, but I don't remember napping. If I napped, it wasn't long because I would just stay high. I would not ever stop getting high. It did not stop. I had unlimited supply, so I never stopped putting it in my body. I hated myself. I didn't want to feel, so I would just keep taking anything I could to get fucked up. And since my drug of choice, if you just do a little bit, can make you stay up for a couple days, imagine what an unlimited supply would do to you. And that's why I got down to 95 pounds. I wasn't eating. I wasn't sleeping. Anyways, he and I would be off and on, and I also, there's so much to my story. This is important to my story. There's a man that I met in NA, when one of those many times I was in and out, who took me in, bought me a car. So I would live with him. I had my own room. And then when things would go well with my boyfriend, I'd end up, going out on these week or month benders with him. And then if we'd get in a fight, I'd go back to this house. But this man who was in NA would allow me to get fucked up. Like, he would buy my drugs and alcohol while he was going to NA. And
what?
Yeah. So
really?
Yeah. So things went south really quick. I started seeing signs that I needed to not be around him, but I was willing. I manipulated and did anything I had to do to stay high and have a place to live and have a car. And he not only did all of those things for me, but he would cook for me if I was hungry. He would take me shopping. He took care of me. And there was no kind of relationship there, just friends. And I held on to that as long as I could. Long story short, by the time I'm 25, my life's a wreck. I'm living like I'm telling you, on roach-infested floors and with this old man who's a creeper. And, I'm just, like, I can't not stay high. And I'm finally getting to the point where I'm like, fuck, I'm so tired of this lifestyle. It's insane. And my dad lives in Costa Rica, and so he offered to let me come to Costa Rica to go to rehab and try to get clean. So I thought, cool, a fucking vacation from this life. And I didn't really hesitate, to tell you the truth. I went and got my passport, and I went to Costa Rica. No thoughts about it. But I went in it with the intentions of, just like I said, it's going to be a vacation. Like, if I can just get a little bit of a vacation, maybe I can come back and I can still do this stuff but not do it as hard as I'm doing it now. I still thought that somehow I was going to control shit. So I went to Costa Rica. That's when I met you for the first time. And
Yes.
I went to Costa Rica recovery, and I did 4 months in outpatient. And then I think I stayed in Costa Rica for 5 months, my first time there. You know, I was finally starting to understand that I had a problem. Like, I knew I had a problem, but I still was obsessed with this idea that I could control shit. And I wasn't really willing to give my life to God. I still wanted to run the show. So nothing was changing except that I was abstinent from drugs and alcohol for 5 months. And that I was starting to realize that, yes, I'm an addict, but I just couldn't seem to give up my will. I wanted to run everything because I know how to do everything perfectly. Obviously, it's why I ended up where I was at by this age. And I went back after 5 months, and I knew I was going back to Dallas because I wanted to drink. And I thought I was just going to be able to drink like a normal person, and I was never going to touch drugs again. And that was my plan. And I drank the very first day, or it might have been the second day, whatever. I came back to Dallas, and I got drunk. Didn't control it. I remember sitting there counting my drinks and counting the time and feeling so miserable because I'm trying to control me not getting drunk. And I just wanted to get drunk. Like, it was the worst time ever. And I did get drunk, and I blacked out like I always did when I drank. And the very next day, I was out smoking meth. So this leads to my bottom for me. That man that I told you about that was a creeper, well, he ended up raping me, and I still talked to him because he provided me with a car and drugs, so I needed that. I was homeless at this time. He had lost everything because he ended up relapsing. And so he lost everything.
That's truly a shocker. I find that so hard to believe.
So he couldn't give me a place to live anymore, but I still had my car that he bought for me that was in his name, so I still would have to talk to him if I wanted that car. Well, I didn't have anywhere to go. By this time, no drug dealer, no man wanted anything to do with me. Everybody knew who I was, and they were like, this girl is fucking crazy. So I was living out of this car for like 4 months, and, you know, every now and then what would happen was I started selling meth so I could stay high, not because I wanted to make money, but because I needed to get high. So I would meet drug dealers who would, you know, give me the drugs up front, and then I was supposed to pay them back. Well, I wasn't very good at paying them back because I would do all of it. So every now and then they would put me in a hotel room so I could sell their drugs and make them money. But it didn't last very long because, like I said, I did it all. And I was getting pretty large amounts given to me up front. So, I mean, I already had unlimited supply, but by this point, I'm just doing way too much at once. And I started becoming the most insane I had ever become. Like, I was seeing things and hearing things, and I lost my mind. I don't know who that person was to this day, but it was crazy. So, I ripped off 3 different drug dealers. I owed them all money, and they were all telling me that they were going to find me and kill me. And I had nowhere to go, and I'm driving around with ounces of dope in my car, with bottles of Jaeger in my car, and my life is completely unmanageable and insane. And I remember the day I realized I'm either going to die because I'm going to get killed or because I'm going to kill myself because I'm getting fucked up all the time, or I'm going to end up in prison. So that's when I called my dad, and I went back to Costa Rica the second time. I went back to that rehab, and this time I did inpatient. And I got there, and I remember when I came back to Costa Rica, I sat on that couch in that rehab, and I hugged that pillow so tight, and I started crying because I felt safe for the first time in months. And I felt like I could finally not be in so much fear of what was going on in my life and just finally relax. And that's when the light came on. That's when I started getting really willing to do something different. So I started, I stayed in there for 3 months in inpatient, and then my dad saw so much change in me, he let me move in with him, and I ended up living in Costa Rica for 3 years.
I know.
Yeah.
I miss you.
I know, I miss you too. So, I worked with a sponsor. I went to NA meetings, and they suggested all these things to me, and I did everything they said because I was so terrified. I did not want to go back out. And they suggested I don't get in a relationship. And I was always with a guy, so I'd listened to the suggestion, and I stayed away from a guy for a whole year. But I found my boyfriend when I had 8 months clean and sober, and I told him, wait on me because I have to have a year. I had him picked out, waiting. So as soon as I got a year, I was with him. And, I just wasn't healthy enough at that time to have a relationship. So I put my recovery on the back burner, and I made this guy my higher power. And it worked okay for a little while, but then I ended up not moving forward with the steps. And I started making him first, so I was not going to meetings and not working with others because I wanted to be around him 24/7. And I had 2 years, and I remember when I had 2 years clean, I didn't even want to go to the meeting because I hadn't been going, and I knew that I could tell, like the relapse happened before I picked up. I was not right inside. But I went and picked up my chip because I had been clean, and then I don't think I really went much after that. I pretty much stopped contact with people and just thought, you know what, I've been doing this for 2 years. I'm cured. I can control it now. The thought came back in my head. And so 6 months later, at 2.5 years clean, I ended up going to a bar for a cappuccino at midnight, and I got drunk. I don't know who goes to a bar at midnight for a cappuccino, but obviously I was not going for a cappuccino. I thought I was, but I wasn't. And thank God the relapse only lasted 2 weeks, but I did try a new drug in that time because there's no meth in Costa Rica. I tried crack. And because when I drink, I have to do drugs. And when I do drugs, I have to drink. I mean, they go hand in hand for me. I can't do one without the other. So I tried crack, and then I came back to Dallas the following weekend and did meth again, and that's what really freaked me out, that I hung out with those people again. I put my life in jeopardy. I still didn't know if they were trying to kill me. You know, I didn't know what the hell was going on, and I went around them. And so I remember coming back to Costa Rica because I'd visit every 3 months. You have to leave the country if you're not legal in Costa Rica. And
Right.
So I came back, and I freaked out. I don't really remember that time because I had another relapse after that. I think it was 2 or 3 months in, and it was only one day, and I drank and tried to kill myself, and that was October 7th, 2012. So I've been sober since October 8th, 2012. And but in between July and October of 2012 is kind of a blur, but I journaled every day. And so I constantly read that journal and remind myself of what it was like when I went back out after 2.5 years. And every day, all I could write about was how the obsession was back and how I just wanted to get fucked up, and I couldn't stop thinking about it. And I knew I didn't really want to, but I couldn't stop thinking about it. Why do I keep thinking about it? What's wrong with me? That 2-week relapse made it, bam, full power back again.
So tell us real quick. You said that during that relapse, you tried to kill yourself?
Yeah, so I not the 2-week relapse, but after that, my final relapse on October 7th, I went to go drink, and I looked in the mirror and started crying because I didn't really want to get drunk. But it's like,
were you here or were you in Texas?
I was in Costa Rica.
Okay.
So I didn't really want to drink, but I was obsessing, and my mouth was like watering. It was like that urge. So I went and got drunk, and then I tried to hang myself that night. But I tried to choke myself, with a cord. I didn't hang from a ceiling. So it wasn't successful because as soon as I started having like seizure movements and turned blue, I freaked out and undid the thing around my neck. But I'm really grateful I did because it kind of woke me up. It made me realize, okay, nothing's going to change. Like I'm a drunk, I'm an addict. And if I don't try this program, because I go to a 12-step program, if I don't do something different, then nothing's going to change. Like I'm not going to be able to stay clean and sober. So that's when I'm grateful for that relapse because it made me realize that no matter how much time I get, I'll never be able to control it. It made me take things more seriously. I got a really impulsive idea during this time when I got sober, October 8th, 2012, to move back to Dallas. And everybody thought it was a horrible idea and that I was going to relapse, but it actually turned out well.
It did.
It did. So I was never independent. That was on my 4th step. I was terrified to be alone. I didn't think I could support myself. I didn't think I'd ever be able to hold a job. So I moved back here and I had to because my dad pretty much was like, look, you're 27. You need to grow up. So I got a roommate who was in recovery and I lived with him for a year and it was awesome. I plugged myself into meetings and for the first year, I'm not going to say it was easy. I have social anxiety, so it was really hard for me to find a home group because I didn't want to go around people. I was terrified of them. But I met this girl who was amazing and we became best friends. We're still best friends to this day. And so she kind of helped me ease into it, and introduced me to people. And she introduced me to who's still my sponsor today. And I have the most amazing sponsor. This woman is hardcore. She will tell me how it is, no sugarcoating. And And I remember the first day I met her, I was crying because I was always on a pity pot. It was always everybody else's fault, and I was the victim, and poor me. And so I'm sitting in the parking lot crying over some dumb shit, and she comes up, and we had never met. We were just told about each other, but, through my friend. And she says, if I'm going to sponsor you, there ain't going to be any of this crying shit. And I was like, oh, every day, I don't know who this woman is and how I'm not supposed to cry. So I really
absolutely love this woman.
You would. I wish you could meet her. Maybe one day. She's awesome. So
I love it.
Anyways, she was hardcore. She would tell me what I needed to hear, and for some reason, she could just tell what I was going through. She was the first person. It wasn't that she did anything different. It was really just I was ready and willing. She could tell. She was spot on. Like, she had been through the same things I had been through. So it was so easy for me to be honest with her and talk to her because she would just know what I was going through. And I did anything she asked. I worked the steps with her. She would tell me to go to meetings. I didn't want to go to meetings, but I'd go. She told me to quit crying. I quit crying. I called her every day. Once I got a year and I had finished the steps. Oh, wow, I got to share about my spiritual awakening. Okay, so I worked the steps, and then on step 9, I had to make an amends to myself for using and having a child and giving them up for adoption and all that stuff. Because she thought that maybe I was beating myself up because of that. So I wrote a letter to myself, and I was cussing her out. I mean, I said, fuck you, I don't want to fucking do this shit. This is bullshit. This isn't going to fucking help me. I fucking hate you. I mean, just like that. But I did it anyways. And I felt so shitty after I wrote that letter because all those feelings came up. And I remember I was just crying. And I had discovered running at this point. Running had made me feel less stressed. It kind of took that edge off of me. And I think it was maybe 9:30 at night. And I went for a run after I wrote this letter. And I got God bumps for the first time because I just felt like I could finally forgive myself for all that shit I had done in the past, that didn't define who I am today. And that since I was able to see that God forgave me and he didn't judge me or hate me for all the things that I had done. And it was just the most amazing feeling. And that's when I really started to grow. So at my year, I started sponsoring. I started chairing meetings. I joined the service group, I can't even think, Group Conscience. We have a Group Conscience, so there's people on, that do different service positions.
You're on the committee.
Thank you. Yes, I'm struggling. And so I was a corrections rep for our group. So I would take meetings to the prison, to the women's prison. And so I've been there several times and told my story. And you go to 3 different units back to back. So you tell your story and then go to a different unit, tell your story, go to a different unit, tell your story. It's a nonstop thing. And it's a 3-hour drive there and a 3-hour drive back. And I did that for a year. I didn't go like every day or something for a year, but I was on that committee for a year. I actually just rolled off. And that really helped my recovery because I got plugged in and had a purpose. I had a meaning. I also started sponsoring girls. I've had 5 sponsees. I currently have 2. The first 3 went back out. My 2 that I have now, I talk to every day, and one of them's already completed the 12 steps. The other one, we're on step 1, but I've been working with her for a while. And, I never thought that I'd want to sponsor. I never thought that I'd want to do service work. I didn't go to AA or NA to do these things or to experience God moments. I just went because I didn't know what else to do. I didn't want to die, and I didn't want to end up in prison, and I didn't want to be miserable. I had no idea what this program was going to do for me. And not only did it free me from that obsession to need to drink and get drunk and high, but it showed me how to have relationships with others. It showed me how to care about other people. My favorite thing to do is sponsor. I love working with other women because it takes me out of myself, and they teach me just as much as I teach them. I'm always constantly learning from them. Even the fact that people ask me to sponsor them is a complete miracle to me. Like, I never thought I'd be able to help anybody. I was a hopeless piece of shit who had nothing to live for. And today I have a career. I work for a flooring company. I just got promoted this week. I have my own apartment and my own car that I pay for. Nobody else pays for it for me. I have a dog who I'm completely in love with. She's my child. And I take care of her and provide for her.
Is it the same little poodle?
She's a Pappy Jack. I found her outside the group in Costa Rica.
What happened to the poodle?
That's my dad's dog. he kind of helped me, ease into that. So, and actually, I have 2 plants, and I've never kept a plant alive in my life, and I keep those alive. And my whole point is that I couldn't take care of myself, let alone anybody else. Like, I was just living off of other people and drugs, and I didn't know how to function. Could never hold a job, couldn't do shit. And today, I'm an adult. I'm 29, and I have all these things, and it's not even about things. It's peace of mind and that connection with God. I now fill that void with my higher power, and I'm not going to say I do it perfect every day, but I do ask for his help every day. And I still try to run the show, and I'm still a perfectionist, so I'll try to take my will back sometimes. And when I do, shit gets a little crazy, and then I'm quickly reminded, oh, yeah, this is why I'm supposed to give it over to God and not try to do it myself. So sometimes I have to go through a little bit of pain and misery before I can remember that, but that doesn't happen as often as it used to. And, I'm working the steps for my second time around with my sponsor, and I just celebrated 2 years. And
yes, you did. Congratulations.
Thank you. And it's a miracle. I don't know how it happened or why it happened, but I feel like my purpose in life was to help other women who've been through the same struggles. I feel like I went through all of that for a reason, and I don't regret any of it because it's made me who I am today. Basically, what I tell people who are new is if I can fucking come through this shit alive and I can stay clean and sober, anybody can, because I'm not saying I'm worse or better than anybody, but I could not stop for anything. I didn't care what got in the way. I just needed to stay high. And today, I don't do that. Today, I don't even have that desire. And so, yeah, it's amazing, and it's a blessing, and it's truly a gift to be in recovery and to be clean and sober today. And that's my story.
Wow. Oh, my goodness. That was an amazing story. Thank you so much for sharing your experience, strength, and hope with us. It was truly inspirational, especially for the newcomers. As somebody who's in recovery just like you are, these are the stories and these are the experiences that happen in our life that make us who we are. We evolve into the people that we are today. We were talking about my 11-year-old daughter, like you said, and we have an amazing relationship. She is everything to me. I'm 11 years sober, and she's 11 years old, and she's the reason I'm alive today. So there is that power of children that nothing else has as much power as they do. So again, thank you so much for sharing your story. It was absolutely breathtaking, to say the least.
Thank
but
you.
More importantly, go ahead. Sorry.
I just said thank you. That's all I said.
I'm just a little overwhelmed. And this brings us into the next part of the show, which I call For the Newcomer. And your story, without question, is for the newcomer. It's awesome. It's awesome. And I love that you're sponsoring all these women and that you're totally involved in the program. It's how we stay clean today.
Oh, yeah.
There's no question. And that high that you get from helping others, there's nothing you can replace that feeling with. So for the newcomer, I'm going to ask you 4 questions about your early recovery, and I want you to respond with inspiring and insightful answers you can share with our newcomers. You ready?
No pressure. Let's go.
All right. So what was keeping you from getting clean or staying clean when you first got introduced to recovery?
I guess just the simple fact that, first of all, I'm stubborn. So I apparently have to learn things the hard way. And I didn't want to give up my control. I'm a control freak. And I thought that I could just make it different. If I tried a different drug, if I did this drug differently, if I just drank, if I just did this, it would be different. If I dated this person and not this person, I couldn't understand that it had nothing to do with that the problem was just me. So until that clicked, it didn't really work for me.
Excellent. And at one point, did you have a spiritual awakening, that aha moment in recovery when you accepted that you were powerless over drugs and alcohol, but for the first time, you developed a hope that you could recover?
On step 9. That night, I wrote the letter to myself to forgive myself for using while I was pregnant and went for the run. That was the first night that I finally understood what they were talking about when they said spiritual awakening. I really didn't ever understand what the fuck anybody meant. And so when that happened, I was like, oh, this is it. And it's kind of like a drug. You just keep wanting to get it. I get God bumps a lot, and I love it.
Beautiful, beautiful. What is the best suggestion you have ever received?
There was one I thought of the other day, and I can't think of it at this moment, but my dad is always, I'm a worrywart. I still struggle. I have anxiety and worry about a lot of things. My dad has always told me, do the things you fear the most, and the death of fear is certain. And that has been so true in my recovery. And even though I'm not saying everything I've faced in recovery means that I've overcome a fear, like I still have a fear of speaking on the podium at my group. I still have a fear when they call on me, just because I don't like talking with a bunch of people looking at me, but I still do those things. And I'm okay. I live through it.
Give us that quote again.
Do the things you fear the most, and the death of fear is certain.
That is beautiful. And if you guys are driving right now, don't pull over to write this down, all right? The show notes will be on the website, and you can see all the show notes from this interview. And you can also thank Leigh Ann for her share. So don't worry about jotting it all down, but that's a beautiful quote. And finally, if you could give a newcomer only one suggestion, what would it be?
I know this is so cliche, but just keep coming back and don't pick up. All you got to do.
That's it. I'll tell you what, I do this for a reason. And after a while, when people come to the website, they're going to see that there's a pretty steady stream of slogans that are repeated over and over again because it works if you work it.
It does. It's another slogan. I know when you're new, it sounds so dumb. You're like, why did I say all this weird shit? But once it clicks, you'll get it. Like, it all makes sense once it clicks. I love it. I don't know. It's so cool that I actually get it today.
It's true. It's true. Great suggestion, Leigh Ann. And again, thank you so much for giving back, being of service, and most of all, for sharing your experience, strength, and hope for the newcomer.
I'm excited.
I loved having you. I loved hearing your story. And before we say goodbye officially, I have one more question for you. Of all the meetings you have attended anywhere in the world, which group is your favorite, and where is this group located?
Can I pick two?
Sure, absolutely.
Well, the Vigilance Group in Costa Rica. It is an NA meeting, and that is where I really first started getting involved for real. Like, I started becoming serious there, and I met my friends like you. And then when I moved back to Dallas, I meeting hopped for a long time, and I couldn't find that group where I felt like I fit in, and so now I go to Addison Group, and it's an AA group, and it's just truly amazing. They're all my family. I love it. I walk in, and I get excited to see people. It's just like it was at Vigilance. You walk in, you see the same faces, and you go hang out after the meeting, and it's just so cool. So,
excellent. All right. Well, we have now reached the end of our show. Thanks for joining us. And as we say here in Costa Rica, pura vida.
Pura vida. Ciao.
All right. Ciao, honey.
Thank you for joining us on the Share Recovery Podcast. To check out the show notes page on this interview or to thank our guests for sharing their story, go to www.thesharepodcast.com. While you're on the website, don't forget to sign up for our free newsletter to stay up to date on the latest news, podcasts, and interviews. Want to be one of our guests and share your story? Then go to our website and click on the Share Your Story button. We share our inspiring recovery stories every Tuesday, so subscribe to our show on iTunes or Stitcher Radio to get your free weekly download. We'll see you then.